Povich found a genuine 21st century legal pad. Denobulan weather towers seed cloud with silver iodine. And Dr. Culber interrupts book's video game playing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 6, Whistlespeak, written by Kenneth Lin and Brandon Schultz, directed by Chris Byrne. What a surprise. Very special guest writer Brandon Schultz is here. How are you today, Brandon?
Hello, everybody. I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here, sitting alongside you, Ryan, and Cirroc,
and especially Cirroc,
one of the all-time greats of the franchise.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon.
Real quick, a little bit of backstory on you, Brandon. You've written a ton of episodes on Star Trek Discovery. Of course, you've been with the team since season 1. You started off as a writer's assistant, moved up to a writer, wrote a bunch of episodes, and you wrote the Short Treks episode, The Girl Who Made the Stars. That's pretty cool. Can you start us off just with that? Tell us about writing that short trek and how did that come about?
Right. Well, thank you for having me. This is a real treat, as I said. And Girl Who Made the Stars came from a pitch that I had that was based off episode 201, Brother. It's where we start to learn the hints of Michael Burnham's relationship to Spock. And in that episode, which was written by Alex Kurtzman and Jenny Lumet, there's a captain's log, or at the time, first officer's log, and where Michael Burnham is talking about this origin story from the Sam Abathwa people of southwestern Africa. And I was fascinated by that bit of story and bit of intrigue. And it's about this origin story that's based off true mythology, where a girl, dug her hands into the sand, threw it into the heavens, and that became the stars. That was became the girl who made the stars. And so it was using this in this very poetic and lyrical way. And so I was always pitching about some way to bring that story full circle. And so when I think season 2 of Short Treks was announced, Alex came to me and he said, would you be interested in doing a short trek, something animated? And I said, I've worked in animation for 10 years, so animation is a first love, and live action was relatively new to me. I love live action. I love doing live action. Is there anything live action? He said, I really want to do this animated story. I kind of want it to be Afrofuturism. Would you think you might be interested? I took the hint and I said, that sounds amazing. Afrofuturism, like, just stop, say less, and I proceeded to kind of write as fast as I could an idea that I hoped that Alex and the team could say yes to. So that's kind of the origin story for that short trek.
And they did say yes.
They did say yes. My first draft, they said that might be the $100 million version of our short trek. Could you pare it down a little bit, Brandon? And so yeah, so it started as a maybe, and then became a yes. So wow. I encourage everybody to watch those, along with all the Star Trek short treks. They were nominated for an Emmy for best short series, and it's something that I'm super proud to be associated with. Our beloved producing director, Olatunde Osunsanmi, directed the short, did an amazing job, and our Star Trek VFX team like poured every ounce of love into these short treks and creating a workflow on the fly in addition to doing their regular jobs. So there's just a ton of love that were put into these short treks. And it was for, just providing more to the Star Trek community, because it definitely wasn't for the money. It was for the people, because as people might remember, when Discovery came out, we were the first, Star Trek episodes since Enterprise. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot out there. So short treks really filled a kind of an important niche, I think, in transitioning us to now what we know of the current universe, which is so awesome and so healthy.
Brandon, I'm glad you, for one, you got a chance to work on that particular thing that you had a fondness for. And now that I'm kind of doing this class at Stanford on Afrofuturism, it's great that you're bringing the exact topic up. So it's kind of a wonderful thing. Yeah. One thing that we hear consistently with Kurtzman and his reign as the head honcho for Star Trek is we see a lot of people with upward mobility, people who are getting chances to move up in career-wise. And it seems to be that is also the case in your case as well. Can you walk us through a little bit about how your talent is being recognized and how there is room for, elevation for a writer like yourself?
Yeah. Well, I started with Discovery the day we opened the room for season 1, right? So the pilot, that was March 7th, 2016. It was
Jesus, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's like
Barack
10 years
Obama
ago.
was president.
The world was a very different place.
Very different
in
place.
March of 2016.
Yes. We were trying to get Merrick Garland approved for the Supreme Court. That didn't happen. It was, as you said, Ryan, it was the world was a very different place. But it was just like the project of a lifetime just to be associated with. And as you said, like I started off, I was getting lunch, taking orders, taking notes, and writing at the board, anything that anybody needed, like that was my role, along with the other support staff members. And it became really an education, even though I had already been, I'd written, produced work. I had produced animation for 9 years. I had taught classes, on writing for animation. There were a lot of, had a lot of professional achievements. And some people said, "Why are you going to be an assistant?" I said, "It's this Star Trek."
Yeah.
So anything that I can do to get in the room, you're basically in the nucleus, and this, Cirroc, of like the highest performing people in their fields, because this franchise, this story that we've been telling collectively, with blessing of Gene Roddenberry for 60 years, it attracts, high performers of all types. Day 3, I think we were having a group phone conversation with the writer's room and Dr. Mae Jemison, right? I think week 2, we were talking to Dr. Paul Stamets, about what would make an astromycologist. This was like the highest level education that anyone could possibly get in episodic storytelling. I mean, we had Nick Myers on staff, we had Kent on staff, we had Joe Manosky, who is, who I'm lucky to still count as, a close associate and friend, who who wrote Darmok as well as
Old
co-wrote
school.
Chase, these really foundational Star Trek episodes. These were all people who started off the staff, on that fateful day in March of 2016. And there's been, so many amazing writers who have mentored me and read my work and given me feedback and let me read their work since then. And it's what's great is, well, one of those people is my co-writer on this episode, Kenneth Lynn.
Mhm.
We've been working together since season 3, and we had our first episode that we co-wrote together was called Sanctuary, and
Okay.
was Book's first trip home, where we learned about the Quajon, so that this, in many ways, the episode that we're talking about today is a full circle moment, from mentorship to, collegiality, with a fellow writer.
Speaking of full circle, while you were talking about those first days, March 2016, episode 1, week 2, I was thinking, for us and for our fans, this is a hello, Brandon Schultz. Nice to meet you. But it's also a goodbye and thank you so much for everything you've done for the last 7 years. It was actually making me sad, realizing that while we're saying hello, we're also thanking all of you and giving you a goodbye for, and thanking you for everything that you've given us for the last, what is it, like 65 episodes, I think it is, of Discovery or thereabouts. And these several years, you gave us hope. Oh my God, a new Star Trek series. This is it. You created these characters. You did all this. You gave us 5 seasons. So there's this full circle moment where, yeah, we are saying hello, but we're also saying thank you for the memories.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're watching these episodes, or when you're seeing these episodes come out, because you already lived this a year or two ago, these goodbyes,
Sure.
but is it bringing up those memories of the first days all the way through the last days?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to trigger, those memories, because you've had these really charged moments, and sometimes it might be like pitching really hard for a storyline that means a lot to you, and like in the times where I was an assistant, right? Being heard, right? And in the times when I was an assistant, like having, those pitches not go my way, right? And then like, okay, how do you channel, energy, creative energy that you feel really strongly about? Well, sometimes you have to write your way out, right? And to paraphrase Hamilton, right? So it's like I remember very clearly season 2. I had a strong pitch about which also leads into Girl Who Made the Stars, just about learning more about Burnham's Earth parentage, right? Because she when she came to Sarek and Amanda, she's a 10-year-old. Now, as a parent of 10-year-old girls, I know that is such a formed human. Who was Michael Burnham before, she came to be Sarek and Amanda's adopted daughter, And so that was a pitch that I had in season 2 that, was not landing. And so, I did what everyone tells you not to do in that situation, which is to spec your own show and write your own episode in your off time. And that was just an example where being part of Discovery taught me so much, right? It taught me that like when you are running up against barriers, you have to write your way out. You can't always convince someone, or it can't be an email. It has to actually show on the page. And that was a real learning moment for me because things happened during the season where I was actually able to show this idea, my script to Alex Kurtzman, and he read it, in front of me, and then he was quiet for about 5 minutes, and we were about halfway through season two, and then he proceeded to pitch me out what the end of season two would be, incorporating the ideas that I had in my script of Michael Burnham's birth story, but also other ideas that he had been formulating while also running 2 or 3 other shows, to kind of explain the all of the big mysteries that our stories were dovetailing towards.
Wow.
And he said, "You're gonna write the script or co-write it, and it's gonna be great." And that was, just a huge moment for me, right? Professionally, personally, for Alex to have, faith and idea to take the time, to read something from, at that time, I was an assistant, yeah, it is a through line with his era of leadership, with Discovery, and also for the Michelle Paradise, as our leader, who came to us officially running the shows in season 3, but she has always fostered an environment of bring any idea to the table, as long as it forwards all of the goals, what I mean, that we've kind of set out on day one, and keep finding new ways to pitch what is most meaningful to you, and some people say that, and then it's kind of, and those are nice words to hear, but Michelle and Alex, they really mean that. They really are fighting for the best ideas to win.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a testament to really Kurtzman's leadership, and that he's able to really invest in the people around him, that he elevates and gives opportunity. All of those things, I think, are excellent qualities in a real showrunner. So I have a question for you. Is this season 5, writing for this season 5, different than the previous seasons in that we have this kind of treasure hunt, that's a theme throughout this last season so far, where you have these clues and missing pieces, and one thing takes you to the next place. So it almost makes me think that you have to kind of game plan this stuff together or in advance, that the episodes don't stand alone for so much. Is that different?
Well, yes and no. I think I think what we've been able to do is always, throughout the tenure on Discovery, have a room, that was very cohesive and talked about the season as a whole, from early days of Blue Sky. And we kind of broke episodes. We call it breaking episodes when we're, creating our individual episode stories. But we would break episodes as a team, and sometimes we would, kind of subdivide into smaller units of the writing staff. And so that was continuity. So that was the same. But I think what was different in this season was just the real confidence in every tool that we have at our disposal in terms of knowing the production team, like having that really good, smooth relationship, understanding the limits, where we can push, where we might want to dial back, how we can best utilize our cast, and having tested all those things a little bit more, it made the idea of a treasure hunt, type season really buoyant and fun for all of us to break. Even though it was also pulling your hair out, right? Because you want to keep hiding the ball from the audience and and then what I love is Michelle's instincts in sometimes telling the audience exactly what's going on, and not hiding the ball, and that felt like in certain ways fresh and different, because it wasn't about whether you're going to guess where we're going. It was just how we were getting there, that I think is fun and interesting. Yeah, I hope that answers in some.
It does to some degree. But this episode has some things that I hadn't seen before. I think the biggest thing that jumped out to me was the visual tricorder or something. Was it the tricorder of the eye?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what was up with that? I had to do a double take. I was like, did they introduce this and I just haven't, like, I missed it, or I was that new?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you all noticed episode 3, where the Itronach episode, where the phasers appear from the badge. People were saying a similar thing. They didn't know that could happen, and it's so interesting. That was actually, we have the envisioning of our production team up in Toronto since we did the retrofit in season 3, right? So that was always part of it, but I don't think we showed it to the extent, right, that you saw this season. The fact that phasers and everything could emanate from the Delta, right? And so I think Olatunde, Osunsomni, I mean, they dream up, right? All these visual flair. So between Olatunde and Chris Byrne, who is such a visual director. I mean, if you go and look through his IMDb and the episodes of Trek and other things that he's directed, you just see there's panache in every frame. So I'm so excited that everybody's getting something new, and I would kind of, I would let them talk more about it, because it's something that has been kind of conceived of for a long time, but I think just shown for the first time.
Brandon, there was something else in this episode that I wanted to touch on. Culber and Book at the end, they shared a very Star Trek moment, in my opinion. It was kind of like the episode felt like it was ending, and then we got a little moment there. And I was like, this feels very Star Trek. I still think that the most Star Trek moment was a couple seasons ago. There was this, it was, I think, Stamets and Jet Reno. I know it's Jet Reno, and they were talking about a hangnail, or maybe it was Culber. Anyway, there was so much subtext. It was excellent. But in this one, this was a very Star Trek moment, and it made me think, do you guys deliberately think, all right, let's get these Star Trek moments and pepper them in. Let's get some really good, juicy nuggets that people are going to love and pepper them in. Or does it just kind of happen organically? What's the process there?
Okay, well, this might be a little inside baseball, but
love it.
Here we are. Season 5, baby. So what Michelle does every season at the beginning is she has support staff put down all the names of the cast members and puts them in a hat, and goes around to the staff, and each one of the staff picks a name out of the hat. And that becomes, and then you have that becomes your character, right? To track, because we have such a big cast, right? And we want to make sure that each of our cast is being serviced, to the degree with which we can. And that we are not only tracking them from episode to episode, but really season to season, and how can we give them different things. And that day, where I picked out Dr. Hugh Culper, and I was so elated, to have, Culber as my character. And I really, I'm such a sucker because I felt that way every time, right? I had this, sensation every time we had this ritual, at the beginning of our seasons, because from our bridge crew to our recurring, to our leads, right? There's just something that is so magnetic about all of our cast members. So, but getting Culber meant a lot because I feel a kinship with his character. I was one of the ones who was saying, wouldn't it be interesting if Culber was this therapist, had this role, which he kind of didn't step into until, we're into seasons 2 and 3. And so I was thrilled. So yeah, that I think this, and it doesn't mean all the writers, of course, are pitching on all the characters, right? But it would just meant that it was kind of my job to be tracking Culber and keep him in mind, keep advocating for how he might factor in. So yeah, so all these episodes were really, really the big for me, and that moment with Book and Culber meant a lot to me because I lived in New York City. My roommate was Puerto Rican, and we basically became family. And we know Culber and of course Wilson, right, to share to be a Boricua, And so it was like there was always great pitches from the room on that, not just me, but someone was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if they did arroz con pollo?" And I said, I feel like Culber's recipe would be mofongo, like there's something that is really calling to me about that, right? People, and not everyone knows that dish, right? But his grandmother, his abuela might, right? And so we've been teasing this idea of Culber having this, uneasiness or this, the spiritual feelings that he can't quite explain, And I thought that callback of his family connection was a really powerful way to illustrate that story in this episode. So yeah, it meant a lot to me. And then for Book, right? He sees in Culber a way to pay forward, what Culber has given him in past seasons. He's able to also be in service. And I thought that was awesome for Book. In the season, I really felt more than any other, he really feels like a member of this crew, in every way possible. And so to end the episode on that note, yeah, was a real thrill.
Another introduction too I liked in this episode was the abuela. I like the hologram of her, and I think it was accredited to Dr. Pollard's kind of grief alleviation therapeutic. as some type of program to help deal with mental health. And I
That's
thought
our girl
this is
Raven.
it's a creative way to deal with mental health as a topic, and I thought that kind of therapeutic may one day find itself become a reality. With
Right.
the existence of AI and all of these other tools that are starting to emerge. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for coming up with that as well in this episode. I thought it was another highlight for me.
Yeah. And I won't even take credit for that. Like I literally we form a hive mind, we become the board,
Okay.
So it's like Kenneth has some amazing usually there's one or two things that you can remember. Okay, that's my specific pitch because I had it all stepped out and I remember what that feeling was. And usually it's only because you solved a problem that was like a 1:30 in the morning problem that had to be solved by the next day. Luckily, this wasn't that, and this was just the room kind of pitching on great ideas. And yeah, I mean, that is what's special about the staff and this thing is people give like awesome ideas. I know that wasn't my idea, you know what I mean? But it was kind of the hive mind, even though like I say, like, oh yeah, I was pitching on Culver. No, like, there are so many like creative brains, like you would be silly not to listen and champion, kind of a storyline like this. So
Hey, Brandon, we only have you for another minute here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cirroc, but real quick, this is something Cirroc and I were talking to you about before we hit record. Is that cool mug? And Cirroc was like, there's got to be a story behind it. Can you please? And by the way, that's a cool jacket too. Discovery Season 5.
we want.
This
we
guy's
want to
got
talk
it all.
about it.
Oh yeah, I
got my
came-
questions, Ryan.
I came with all my flair. Where's my hat?
We want the swag talk. Tell us
Okay.
about this mug and that jacket.
As I sip my Earl Grey hot, this mug, I'm not kidding, actually. This is given to, it says just book it, and was given to us at the conclude as a wrap gift at the conclusion of season 3 by none other than David Ajala.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and who had hundreds of mugs in Toronto and Los Angeles, and as somebody who is in need of much coffee and tea drinking as the writing staff, like we definitely appreciated it. Wilson Cruz, by the way, I think it was season 2, came by with bagels for all of the writing staff. Bagels and cream cheese,
Nice.
which Wilson ate approximately 0.
That dude is ripped.
He just wants everybody else to get fatter and more out of shape so he can look even better.
Yeah.
Yes. Wilson brought the extra schmear. Oh bagels with the extra schmear for the writers. So we appreciate that, but we appreciate all the gifts.
But I love David's gift though. It's got the Nike kind of play off the Nike with the Trek instead of just do it. You got just book it, which is great. Really, it's great self-promotion for David. I think it's a smart idea for him.
I would tell you, such an earnest, human being and performer. I just had the benefit of producing episodes that featured David heavily, and David's character heavily. And my goodness, like
I love his character, and I like his character's wardrobe. I think he's got probably the best wardrobe out of all the Star Trek cast members.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about that sweatshirt too? Is that some swag from from one of the seasons?
This is our season 3 crew sweater. And
that is dope too.
Definitely a cool perk. I think another season we got a Michelle is so kind and so hilarious. secretly. She got us a full body Snuggie.
Oh,
Yeah,
a
so
triple Snuggie.
yeah, triple set. It was kind of great for the crew in Toronto, for those of us in like balmy Los Angeles. We haven't had a chance to break out the Snuggie very much.
Wow. Well, not to be outdone, here at the seventh rule, at the end of our season, we have some May 15th, 80% off Easter candy that's going out to everyone. Like the leftovers in the corner of the CVS that's like 80%.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
No,
well,
but our whole team is good to us. John Van Sitters, who is the head of the Star Trek franchise group. I remember like season 2, we had nothing in the office. He gave us all this art to decorate the office. It really was like the kind of the Willy Wonka playground, vibe that you would want it to be, or that you might imagine it to be, especially in those early, heady days. Let's go.
Well, Brandon, this has been way too much fun. And we just want to say how much we appreciate you taking the time today, but also the last 8 years. My goodness, it's been a long, hard road. It's been so worth it. Thank you for everything that you've done as a crew, starting in as a writer's assistant, saying, doggone it, I'll be an assistant. I'll write on the whiteboard. It's Star Trek. I'm going to do it. And then you clearly showed off your skill. You moved up. You got a short Trek episode, multiple Discovery episodes. So many bigger and better things on the way in your future. But for now, we just want to say thank you very much for everything you've done. That's
amazing. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Cirroc. Means a ton coming from you. And thank you for doing this. This is my dream, when I was not that I'm featured on an episode, right? But that we're talking about Discovery, like, in such a way, and the people and the fan base have kind of lifted us up, at every turn. It is a true honor, because I'm just here representing like all the crafts people, our amazing prop master, our amazing VFX team, our incredible post team. It's nice to be the writer and be called up, but those are the people, they're all storytellers, right? And without them, you don't get the episode of Whistlespeak that, kind of you guys are, excited about. Like they build us up so many times because they're pitching us ideas. They're saying, what if this did this, and what if we were able to show this holographic, image of a tricorder? It's like that is the magic of Discovery, is that we have these dedicated people. Our location guys in Toronto speak Klingon. Like,
wow.
These are the type of people who are making the show.
By the way, good locations for choices for this episode as well, because I did feel like I was taken away into like some enchanted, forest somewhere. So that also worked well in this episode. Speaking of locations,
not going to find that in LA. I'll tell you that much.
They're amazing. And can't say enough about them. Our
like the use of the Tibetan bowls.
Oh yeah.
I actually was looking at my own bowl while I was watching that bowl on TV. Nice. So I was thinking, hey, I got one of those.
Awesome. Okay, that is a pitch I will take credit for, or a story device I will take credit for, because I remember that one.
Yeah, I liked it.
We're trying to say we're exploring this Bronze Age civilization, right? And how do you also, how do you show that they're less advanced, but also really recognizing that the tradition of Prime Directive episodes from TNG and Who Watches the Watchers, to TOS, like that is something. And also, how do we respect a civilization and show respect for a civilization that we don't categorize as advanced as us? When we know in our own human history that we may have lost more knowledge than we've remembered, right? The Romans had a technique for curing cement and concrete that we still don't have mastered today, right? It was better then. You have the Vedic medicine that has been lost to history, but is like renowned for how amazing and advanced and how non-invasive it was. You have African and indigenous shamanic traditions that use sound therapy, right?
Yep.
So that being a personal fascination of mine, that was an area that I was advocating for, and it just happened to work out into, hopefully kind of solving a story problem. So that's
sound therapy. That's definitely out there. As in out here in this world, not out there, but that's definitely something that is in existence, and it's really cool to see that. It's really cool to see that being brought into the storytelling. And we are going to cover this episode a lot more right after our break. But Brandon, once again, this has been so cool. We really appreciate you. Thank you very much for everything that you've done and for taking the time and being super gracious with your time with us today. Everybody at home, stick around. We got a lot more to talk about on the Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
That was Brandon Schultz. That guy is freaking amazing. So lucky to have him. Now I just wish we had him more often because that guy was great. So cool that we're getting some of the writers this season. Here are the trivioids of the week. Stamets theorizes that scientists create clues that we can't figure out to mock us. Michael Burnham wants to try history and anthropology. Kovich found a genuine 21st century legal pad, although, by the way, they were crossing them off. I'm like, what are you doing? That's like a total heirloom. Like it's 800, 1,000 years old, and they're just crossing it off. Abuela calls Colbert Nene. Denobulan weather towers seed clouds with silver iodine. Hugh asks Paul to be his assistant. Rava has been telling Tilly of the high summit. And Dr. Colbert interrupts Book's video game playing. All right. So we talked a little bit during the break with Brandon about the Silbadors, people that sing or that whistle when they speak, right? Or whistling is a fashion of speech. In the Canary Islands, it's called Silbadors. It's a bunch of different places. That just means people that whistle. And I was saying how I did a little a film called The Assassin's Apprentice, Silbadors of the Canary Islands. This was a couple years ago. I just wanted to point this out. A lot of fun here. Check out some of the stars. Armin Shimmerman. The late, great, rest in peace, Gary Graham. We got our good buddy Tracy Coco, of course. Sean Kenny, who played Captain Pike in the original Star Trek series. The ageless wonder, this guy. Tara Page. Melissa Longo, that you may know, and a bunch of others. Our good buddy Bill.
Yeah.
Look at who's there.
Bill Victor Arukin.
That's the one. So anyway, good stuff. Ryan T's in there and a bunch of other cool people. Anyway, so Q40A, the late great.
And so you were whistling in this thing, or what was going on with that?
No, what it was a lot of it takes place in the Canary Islands. And we had these droids, or these drones that fly around, and the way they communicate, because they were not trained, they were programmed by Silbadors in the Canary Islands. So they communicate with whistles, kind of like R2-D2. R2-D2 goes, whatever. These guys communicate.
Right.
But we actually had real Silbadors doing actual whistle speak. So when we would say we want the drone to say this, they would actually get in a recording booth and whistle it out. So we learned a lot about whistle speak, and that's why I was kind of interested to watch this episode. There's a lot to learn. You have to research these kind of things, if you want to make it seem legit. And our executive producer and writer, Mr. Paul Hickman, went deep into it and even filmed on location and did all this kind of stuff. So he definitely didn't half-ass it. He learned every single bit, and we had these really cool Silvador consultants that would record, and they would tell us, and uh, consult with us, and it was really cool, really a lot of fun. Anyway, I didn't want to talk about that too long, but this is a real thing. People do have Whistlespeak in a lot of places around the world. This one just happened to be in the Canary Islands. And today's episode happened to be on this planet that had the really cool background. Cirroc, you were talking about, again, the production design blowing us away, the locations department.
Yeah.
It was so cool, wasn't it?
It was. And it actually made me think, oh, wow, they stepped their game up from the everybody's in a little town playing hacky sack around the little fountain in the village.
Yeah.
They must have been listening to us on that, because they did switch that up and they made it a lot better and believable, So I like that part of it too as well.
Wait a minute. You're trying to say that little courtyard where kids are playing hacky sack and somebody's carrying a basket of fruit is not believable?
It's just like not on every single
and then
planet.
two
They gotta
people,
switch it up.
somebody's showing another person some fabric. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
In every TNG episode.
Yeah, we've seen it. They definitely didn't give us a recycle on that. They built out the culture. You can tell that the writers put in a lot of work into building out the culture. Obviously, we saw the kind of tattoo head design, whatever was on their forehead, to just kind of, give them a little bit of accentuation. I thought that was a good touch. The clothes seem similar to the wardrobe that we usually see when we see these kinds of, random
Bronze Age,
anywhere, the Bronze Age type of people. But yeah, I like the idea of the Tibetan healing bowls culturally. I like the idea of their belief system. We got into a little bit of their belief system as far as, what the tower was, the function of this tower and what it would meant to them, the sacrificing of for that cause. So, I mean, those were some pretty good elements that I thought made it interesting.
Yeah.
The world building.
There were, definitely this race was very fleshed out. Their mythology, the way they talk with each other, all that kind of stuff was really cool. One thing I wondered about was the Prime Directive. We kind of mentioned it at the end of the first segment. I had so many more questions to ask Brandon. What a great guy. He fielded so many of our questions. But another one I was thinking about was the Prime Directive. I wonder if there was a conversation in the writer's room saying, is the Prime Directive still in effect 800 years from now? Or are they like, bro, it's the Prime Directive. It's the one that has to stay forever. It's the one. I remember, I wonder if there was any kind of conversation there, if it was just like, it's obviously going to be there. Denobulans, that was the race that did the trade route. That was Dr. Phlox in Star Trek Enterprise was a Denobulan, and that is the one played by John Billingsley. He is the big Denobulan. So that was really cool to hear about them.
I did know that. Didn't know that.
Wow. So that's what it's like
that.
To be on the receiving end of a bad joke. Now I finally feel your pain.
You see it? That's what it feels like.
Thank you for demonstrating.
But no, the thing that I did like, though, going back to the Abuela, I like that part, just the whole ways to deal with mental health that they're trying to kind of implement in this episode. That kind of jumped out to me a lot. Also, I really love Tilly's performances. I feel like she's so natural and just like, it's almost like
she's not acting for her. She's just being, right? She's just, it's as if those words are coming out of her mouth, not off of a page. And I also thought it was really cool, speaking of her, that she and Michael Burnham were running again, like the old days. Like the first season, they'd be running around the ship and, she's training her. And it's like, oh, it's like the good old days. I'm sure that was not an accident. That was fun to see.
Yeah, a little bit of running, a little bit. I was thirsty watching this episode. It just, I had dry mouth. Make sure you have some water when you're sitting down watching this episode.
The bowl of
But
water.
yeah, a bowl of water. Um, there were some things that you mentioned the Prime Directive. It's funny because as many times as they talk about the Prime Directive, it seems like I've seen the Prime Directive broken almost every single time that they bring it up.
Yes.
Almost every time they talk about it's the Prime Directive, we can't interfere. For some reason, they always interfere. I just recently watched a rewatch on the past tense Gabriel Bell and the Bell Riots episode. And Sisko comes in there. He basically is Gabriel Bell. I mean, completely, completely destroying, I guess, whatever this Prime Directive thing. Because I mean, if there's a butterfly effect of whatever actions that you take, then you would think that there is going to be a huge butterfly effect for Burnham exposing herself to this guy, in this episode, who has this kind of prehistoric perception of the world, and then is being, shown his planet from an aerial view on board a spacecraft. So it's like all of these things are like, what are the repercussions? Going down the line, how much effect do these small moments of breaking the Prime Directive actually add up to? That's one question I'm always left with.
But it is an interesting point that, I can't remember an episode of Star Trek where they mention the Prime Directive and they go, oh, yeah, right. Anyway, all right, set a course for the next star cluster. They're always like, but maybe, but what about this one?
It's just one person. They won't, it's just the one guy.
But they've never mentioned the Prime Directive and then followed it. Sometimes they try. Sometimes they try for the first 30 or 40 minutes. And then they're like, well, we tried, but this guy was going to die. What do you want me to do?
I got to use my phaser, bro. I got to use it.
Yeah. And that was the case in this episode where they followed the Prime Directive. But then at the very end, they're like, well, look, we got to save some lives. We got to save Tilly. That other girl, whatever, we just met her. But Tilly, we got to save Tilly because she is going to be a teacher at Starfleet Academy, which, by the way, they mentioned. So I thought it was really cool that they keep bringing it up. They keep teasing it because that is the next spinoff here. So it's always very interesting when they bring that up a bit.
Yeah, it is interesting. My nitpick. Well, this episode is very small, but it's it's one of my nitpicks. Tilly is stuck in this room where the oxygen is being sucked out because it's going to turn into a vacuum.
Okay. Before you say it, can I guess what it is? Because it might be the same as me. Yeah. How is the fire still going?
How is the fire still
Yes. Same team, man. Same team.
Or put out the fire or something, because this is killing our oxygen right here. This is not what we need.
Yeah, blow that thing out. But then I started thinking, hey, it's a different planet, maybe fire. I don't know. But that's funny. Yeah, blow the fire out. It's sucking up all your oxygen. Here's the culprit.
Yes. This guy's taking half of the time up. So yes, that was one of the things. I'm like, put the fire out, guys. What are you doing? It's my little nerd inside of me just jumps up and starts being really particular. Well, technically, if it's a vacuum.
Right now, there's somebody walking next to you in the hotel being like, that guy's a nerd. Yeah.
But yeah, no, this episode, like I was telling him, it feels like there's like I said, this treasure hunt, and this, all the pieces have to fit in together. And it just makes me wonder when you're scripting out what you know to be the last season, if that changes, the way you approach the storytelling. If we're wrapping it all up in a bow, this is all we've got here. We got 10 episodes in front of us. I'm pretty sure it changes the approach that you take.
Well, yeah, but if you'll recall, they did not know this was going to be the last season when they wrote this one. For all we know, they may have had a hunch. They may have known that it's certainly likely or possible or whatever. I don't know, but that's why they went back and re-recorded or reshot some additional footage afterwards. And it just makes me think like there's only 4 episodes of Discovery left ever. That's
Right.
nuts.
Right.
I mean, you almost feel like we've been taking it for granted when you've had it in your life for 7 years. They started, the writer's room in 2016. It premiered in 2017. But that's it. 4 weeks from now, we will be closing the book on Book.
On Book.
And Burnham and Tilly and all of them. And I think we're going to look back and be like, wow, they did a lot in 65 episodes, I think it is.
Yes, they did a lot, and it's coming to a close right now. So it's a little it's sad that it's ending. There's a sadness that sits into it, but we're gonna see. I'm curious to know what changes they did make when they did find out that it was the last season.
Right.
What kind of additional changes? So we first have to watch it, and then we have to go through and
I believe it's all added in the last episode, if I remember correctly, because I thought that maybe they would go and drop little pieces, some in episode 2, some in episode 7, kind of like spackle it in. But I believe what was confirmed was that it was added on to the end of episode 10. So maybe it's going to be like what we had at the end of Deep Space Nine. Remember? Chief O'Brien holds that army soldier up, and then he goes through that whole memory of all that stuff. And then Dax goes, and then there's not a dry eye in the house. It's like, oh my God, I can't even talk about it without getting emotional. But maybe they're going to go back and do something like that. But whatever it is, they were able to go back and shoot and close up, tie up these loose ends. So I think we may have to wait till episode 10 for that.
Okay. I'm willing. Let's do it.
Yeah. But anyway, that's about all the time we have for this week. Unbelievable to say there are only 4 episodes left. Great episode. Crazy. Great guest. Thank you very much to Brandon Schultz. And thank you very much to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Titus Mohler, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allyson Leach-Heid, Julie Manisfee, Greg K. Wickstrom, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Christopher D. Marshall, Johanna Yunker, Roy Epen, and of course, Jason M. Okun. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. It's been a great time. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Cirroc. 4 episodes left.
Yeah. Sweet.
Hit it. Oh, wait. Let's fly, I mean. All right. Thank you all very much. For myself, Cirroc Lofton, Melissa Longo, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, thank you for hanging out with us. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.